pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is a special meeting of the Board of Selectmen, and the items that we will discuss is the budget deliberation or review, and then adoption of the fiscal year 2018-2019 budget. You have in front of you a revised budget based on your decisions over the last several workshops. And I thought what we would do is we will go through the specifics, and then we'll go back and summarize as we typically do with a resolution. So if you would turn to the first page, there is a change under the property taxes because we have reduced the amount of the necessary mill rate. So that number has been reduced.
So wait,
by
wait,
about,
I'm
okay.
not following. Where are you? Page 5?
On page 5,
Page 5 on the 3-ring binder?
On this new piece.
on the new
Okay.
budget.
So-
And just as an example,
How come there's not all, like it starts at page 3? Yeah.
because we didn't copy the
Pages that-
rationales with
Okay.
the tables of content and the letter and so forth, we do that once the budget has been adopted at referendum.
Okay.
So it's just the numbers, Rick, that we've adjusted per the recommendation. So if we go to page 5, the first item that's changed is the number that had been in the March 1 version was $28,269 and 630, excuse me, $28,269,638. The number that it's been reduced to is $834,518. And that's because originally, the increase in the mill rate had been predicted on March 1 to be 1.98, but with our reductions, the number is now 1.44. So that means from property taxes, there's less dollars required. So that is a change in your document. Any questions?
So it's just that highlighted number?
Yes, that is the number for property taxes. For revenue. This is the revenue portion.
Okay.
So, just to repeat, the March 1st was $28,269,638. The number that it is on April 11, tonight, $27,834,518. It's a reduction. Any questions? Okay. The next item is under miscellaneous on page 7, and I'm going to ask Tom to remind us what that is.
So the page 7, miscellaneous, and page 105, there's an associated miscellaneous expense. The miscellaneous revenue is amounts that we anticipate receiving from the bond proceeds that will then be turned around and spent toward paying the bond issuance costs. The expected amount is the $105,000 is the component of the expected premium on selling the bond.
Tom, could you explain that again?
So
So it says
we initially had a bond issuance in the current year and a $415,000 interest payment. So when we pulled that out to move it to the next year, one of the things we talked about with our bond counsel and bonding team is to put the issuance cost as an expense in the debt service of $105,000. And then when you sell a bond, there's often a premium, and that $105,000 will come in as miscellaneous revenue.
Okay, so the miscellaneous revenue is 121,000?
Yeah, it was budgeted at 16 before. Normally, KERMA gives you some type of a payout for being a good client,
Okay.
and usually that's around that somewhere it's around the $16,000 number. It fluctuates. You don't know until the next year.
I hate to ask you this again, so how does the pushing, just so I understand, how does the pushing the bond back generate revenue under, like, how, is it just juggling the math, or?
Well, yeah, in thinking it through with the team, the project itself have limited resources, right, for the 10 million. So instead of trying to charge all the issue cost to the bond itself, any of the excess that comes in on what's called the premium of sale, we'll use some of that portion to pay the issue costs. So you're getting money in, and you turn around and you're going to pay your bond counsel, you're going to pay your financial advisor, you're going to pay the rating agency, you're going to pay if there's any insurance, the printers, all that.
So we're gonna pay out 105?
Somewhere, estimated.
So you get it in as revenue, and you expense it
Yeah.
on page 105.
Right.
So
And
it's
then,
it's a wash, it's not an effect on the budget?
And then, while I'm on 105, the reason why the 83002 goes down is because you eliminated the $415,000 interest payment. And then that'll be due July 15th of the next year.
Any questions on that?
Well, I have a question on 105, page 105. Oh, should we wait till we get there?
No, ask it now.
So the 148,000, wait a minute, I got that number changed, because that's,
Okay, on page 105, you're referring to miscellaneous, right, Rick?
right.
Okay.
No, I'm, bond interest.
Bond interest, okay.
All right, so bond interest
I
is
think I know why, but.
made up
Go
of
ahead.
it's made of $139,625 of the 2012 refunding. And it's also made up of the 1999 general obligation bond for $9,215. So that was on 104 of your binder. If you look on 104 of your binder,
Yeah.
it'll show what made up the expense. So really all you're doing is you're taking the 416,000 out and then
that's
lowering
what
it. And then where we had miscellaneous on the bottom, that'll be 106, and we'll put next to that, when we do the other thing, we'll say bond issuance costs.
Yeah, the 106 is from page 5 there, that's the difference.
Right.
And then the 148 is because we're moving that, we're not bonding that.
No, the 138 is legitimately expense of your other debt.
Right.
So it's your interest costs associated with your 2012 refunding and your 1999 general obligation bonds. Then the issue of 18 didn't occur, so then that's a zero, and then that'll occur in fiscal year 19.
Okay. So the 139 and the 92 is this 148.40?
Correct.
40. Okay.
So pretty much your bond obligations are made up of the 2012 refunding and the 99 general obligation. And then there's 3 leases. The one for the fire truck, then the one for the 5-year capital lease that occurred in fiscal year 15. And those will be the last years, next year on both of those. And then there'll be the second year's payment of the fiscal year 18 lease that we did this year.
So the 416 will go on from the park when we bond that, but you're gonna have roughly 320 26,000, 27,000 that's gonna come off, because those other two leases fall away in 1920, fiscal 1920.
A 400, it will not be 416, it'll be a different number.
It'll be less, but that's what we had budgeted, that's why I said it, right?
It'll be a different
It'll,
interest.
yeah, it'll probably be higher, right, because you'll have two interest payments.
Okay,
You'll have one in July, and then you'll have another one in January.
okay.
Any other questions on that? So those are the only two changes in the revenue pages. And in terms of changes in the budget, there's no changes on page 19, which is Board of Selectmen, no change in page 21, and so forth. But I just wanted you to have copies of this so you could see where the changes occur. And the next one, I believe, will be in the fire department on page 45. And I'll explain that one, first one. The fire department is having some new communications equipment, and there is a service agreement that is required. That service agreement is $2,860, and that had not been in the March 1 budget. So we had to put that in the budget because that is something that is going to be required. So that is $2,860 under service contracts.
What page are you on?
45,
45.
fire department.
That's the 45.
I'm not seeing it. Yeah.
But let me just make sure Rick's up
Yep.
to where we are.
I got 13,360.
It used to be 10,500.
Oh, so
This is
the
new
difference
number.
is, okay, this is the new number.
That's the new
It
number,
was
yeah.
10.
It was 10,500, yeah.
Okay, so to recap, the amount that the service agreement is $2,860. And the number that was in the March 1 edition is 10,500. So it's been amended to be now $13,360. And this is a copy of the service agreement, so you can see what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's just added to this. Yeah.
Then, the next item that's changed is the gas and diesel fuel. That went from what had been budgeted as $8,750 on March 1. It's now $7,000.
Susan,
Yes.
how did we derive with this company, or is it limited? Who bids it? How did it?
I'm going to have Tom answer that one. I think this had to do with the equipment that was purchased. Is this the service agreement that goes with the equipment, Tom? This,
Yeah, is this gonna be every year, this, or? It's good for
That's
1
for
year.
Yeah, so Norcom is our state bid provider for emergency services for the fire department. They are maintaining our systems. And yeah, we had not necessarily we didn't have a service contract, so no one was servicing that. So this is a service contract will hopefully alleviate, issues within the department so that there aren't breaks in the ability for them to communicate over the system. So it should hopefully enhance the communications and work well to work through that. But that's the recommended service contract for that.
This is the recommended one from the state. Are there others? So just walk me through how we ended up with that. I understand they're the recommended by the state, so.
No, there's
we
a,
went with them.
so we have a state, so the state contract's out there for communication providers. We had utilized another company at one point. The chief went out and reviewed people that, to utilize. We've been using this company Norcom for the, probably a year and a half now. Made, some significant improvements to the network. And this is their professional recommendation on the service contract for this item.
I guess I'll speed my question up to the finish line. How do we know that's a good number? Like everything else we do, we go out to bid, you have a great process that you do. I'm just curious, how do we know that's a good number? I'm just curious. How do we derive this company gave us a good number for that product? Or
That's
did we
the
already
s-
use them for the equipment, and then they threw us a service contract that might not be a good number? I'm just, and I'm completely just trying to figure out how the process works with something like this.
So the state bids, right, so the state is a very big entity, and they procure many contracts. The town has an ability to piggyback off those contracts to get good pricing. This is the pricing per the contract associated with the maintenance for the network. The fire department reviewed it, has presented this as what needs to be completed so that they have good communications and in effect to hopefully eliminate repairs. And there will, hopefully won't be gaps in communication when calls occur for safety reasons.
So the short answer is if they're on the state list, you're confident that they're the low bid?
It's it's an allowable usage of the contract, right?
Okay.
You can use the state contract, because it's generally, you're getting a good price on state
Yeah,
contract.
no, I'm just curious. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. I believe the next page would be 57. I think I had told you last time, an offer was made and accepted now, as of last night, for the Public Works Director position, and I had budgeted it at low, and we needed another $11,000 for that line item, so that's been added. That's still a reduction from the current year.
Susan, do you, offhand, do you know how much of a reduction that is from the current year?
Yeah, it's right there, Ben. I think the current year is
Oh,
171, yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
That's almost 20,000.
Yeah. Well, we had, okay, yeah, that's the adjust, the 154, is that the adjusted after? total?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
Yep, that's 2 employees in that office. The director and the secretary. The next page is 89, and that is the health department. And we adjusted a reduction from what it had been. Because when we put the budget together, Chatham Health District had only given it an estimate, and their adopted budget is $104,350 for the health district. And that's down from $107,905 in March 1's budget. The next page is miscellaneous on page 93. Excuse me. And per your direction, we reduced item 86007, MIXAC, by $500. And we reduced Family Access 86019 by $500. The next item is page 105, which we've discussed. And you can see as an observation, the debt service is down for next year by 1.96. And that's because of the changes we talked about last time. On page 107, there are some changes within the transfers. And Tom, I'm going to ask for your assistance on these as well. There's slight changes in some of them. Animal control, slight reduction, I think it's fuel, but could you verify that, Tom?
Yeah, so animal control, the resource recovery, park and rec were all fuel related. Other was a request to cut a transfer for blight related items. And let's see, the capital changed as a reduction for the $10,000 as there was a request that Airline Trail did not need their funding for this year and the Clean Street Group. And then $5,000 was removed from the renewable energy as it was thought that there was enough money within the fund this year.
Tonight, we are not adopting the water budget or the sewer budget, so we're not discussing those. Those are adopted at our next regularly scheduled meeting. Within the other budgets, Tom just explained the animal control change on page 120 for gas and diesel had been budgeted this year at effect, I'm sorry, Michael?
Can I ask one
Sure,
question? please?
absolutely.
Tom, back to page 107. Could you explain to me the transfer out for cap non-rep town and do it again, please? I just want to make sure I understand that. So
Okay.
line 90012 and 13.
Yeah, so probably the best way to look at that is to, so if you go to page 136,
Yep.
so you'll see there that there's $405,000 transfer in. That's the two line items together.
Which one?
The 405,500. Page 136.
Yeah, 136, yeah.
So the third, it's like the second number.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so that's those two numbers added together. Okay, can continue on. Go to the next page.
Okay.
So 137 is 230,000
Yep.
to replace windows and frames at the brownstone.
Got it.
Okay, go to page 139.
Got it.
It's $99,500 for the police reporting system. That's a reporting system that the state required that they put in. Then there's page 140. There's 45,000 to replace a dump body within the highway division.
Which page again?
140.
140, got a lot.
What was the one right before that? Please, oh, 99,500?
Yes. And then the $45,000 to replace the large dump body. And then on page 144, it is $21,000 for computers, printers, and peripherals for townwide, and $10,000 to continue our reevaluation process.
We end at
Wait,
page
we ended-
141.
Correct, 141, that's what I said.
Oh,
Oh,
is it 141? Sorry.
No, sorry, 141,
Okay.
and then it's 21,000 for computer and peripherals,
Got it.
and $10,000 to continue the reevaluation process. Generally, we do 40, but this year, we only put in 10.
Got it. And that,
So the 230 equals the board, and the other amounts equal the town. And the reason why the reduction is there was 10,000 under parks for Airline Trail, and that was, there was state requested they didn't need it, so the selectmen requested to cut that.
Tom, thanks for doing that. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Sorry, Susan, you can continue.
Okay, thanks, Mike, that was
Smart.
good. Yep, that was good. So I think animal control on page 120. The gas and diesel was reduced to $325.
So 127 is really, the next one is resource recovery. And this one here, there's many changes that are an attempt to reallocate the amount that was in single stream, and to cut a few things to eliminate that. We had found out after the fact that the contract that we had, was expired. We were receiving 22 something a ton, $25 a ton for the single stream recyclables, for, I think that was a 5-year deal, right? Then that lapsed. The market has gone poorly. It was an estimate who have to pay. The Director of Public Works talked to the CRRA. We have a long-term relationship deal that we signed with them on our waste, and there's an opportunity to bring it there for a zero charge, but therefore now the single stream revenue is no more. So we tried to reallocate that, as well as to cut a few things within this budget, and then I think gas and diesel was a minor adjustment as well. The fees there do need to be looked at and hopefully increased, and I'm sure Public Works will look into that as well with finance, and we'll try to come up with a plan.
Can you explain what's, I didn't catch what's happening with the single stream recyclables? So what are we doing now? We're not gonna have a revenue stream from it, but how are we gonna dispose of the?
So we submit our waste out. Rick, do you want to talk on
We
this?
have an agreement, single stream, which is a recyclable, a very good arrangement with Willamette Waste
Previously.
previously for 5 years that expired in November. And we were being paid $25 per ton for everything we brought down.
And that was like where, that bin where you dump
there
your
for 5
cans and your newspapers and.
Exactly, single stream is
Yeah.
all those things, which was a very good, we negotiated a good arrangement. That expired in November. So I received a letter from Willamette Waste saying that they would offer us a different contract, and it would, instead of receiving $25, they wanted $30, us to pay $35 per ton to dispose of it. Which, in fairness, the markets, anything at the transfer station on any given day changes all the time, always does, goes up, goes down, newspaper one day is good, bad, metal. So it's a very volatile market. In any case, so they proposed to us pay 30, and I checked with we have a long-term agreement, 15-year agreement with CRRA, and I contacted them, and we're able to take our single stream to them for no charge. Okay, to make it one more step complicated, which does make it quite complicated, we have been renting 2 compactors from Willamette Waste for a very reasonable price per month. So we are in a position, and I've done some work, and we're in the process of hopefully preparing a purchase order to purchase our own compactors, which is something I didn't really want to do, but I had the deal of it. I had a very good arrangement with Willamette, which of course, once we stop working with them, we will now not have their compactor units. So we will have to purchase compactors to the tune of about $57,500, of which I would recommend doing. We've done all the legwork on it. That's up to you, the board. So what Tom has done in your budget is he has eliminated the revenue stream for the $30 per ton that we would receive. And I haven't seen the latest sheet, but I'm assuming he has proposed some expense. I don't know what you.
Little expense, reduction, a little revenue reallocation.
So I don't know if I've confused you or helped you understand better. It's a change in an agreement we had We have no choice other than to. We could, for example, stay the course with Willimantic Waste and begin to pay them. Instead of receiving 25, pay them 30, keep their compactor units at the same cost, but the numbers really don't work very well for them.
We have two compactors?
Yes.
And they're gonna charge us $30 a month for both?
No, that's a whole separate agreement. That's a rental cost. Again, stay with me. So they have been accepting our single stream product and paying us $30 per ton. With $25 per ton.
$25,
I
yeah.
apologize.
And charging us 30 for
In the same
the compactor.
vein, we have been renting 2 compactors from them for a very favorable price, nowhere near $30. It's more like $315 a month.
Oh.
Anyways, the good news there is they're responsible for maintenance of those, so we don't have any maintenance charge. It works. They will obviously not let us keep those if we decide not to stay with them. The numbers which I'll prepare, I've already prepared a memorandum to both Susan and Tom, which kind of explains the whole thing, and I'm sure they'll go over this with you. You can make a decision as to how you'd like to proceed, but I believe what Tom has done in your budget is to make assumptions that you would probably make a change and take our materials to CRRA, which would be a very good decision, and then make some other changes. But anyway, go ahead.
But when would we'd have to buy these compactors?
Yes, you would.
Soon.
Yes, you would.
So
Well,
are
you
they
don't
in-
have to. Right now, what
Are they
happens...
in the budget, I guess is?
I don't know. I believe there's money, from my understanding, in surplus. I'll let Tom go there. I
Okay.
probably have not helped.
Well, no, I mean, I was,
At least you understand,
Well,
an agreement expired.
Right.
And there's changes that can take place. You could, for example, stay the course with Willimantic Waste and begin to pay them $30 per ton, rather than receiving $25 per ton. And you could keep their compactors. And that would be okay, and pay them $315 per month. And go from there. Stay the course if you'd like to. Probably, in the long run, that's not a very good thing. Probably, in the long run, based on the numbers, if you look at them, and they have them, it would make sense to make that purchase.
have you checked like with CWPM or some other haulers that are?
You don't understand. We haul our own waste. So we haul whatever product we have.
Oh.
For single stream, you have 2 options, basically. You can continue to go to Willimantic Waste and begin to pay them $30 per ton. Or you can go via our agreement with CRRA to what they call Murphy Road, which is affiliated with them, and for no charge. You can bring your products to them. We would haul them for no charge. So the net is, and when you throw in all the other stuff, the numbers would indicate to me at least, and I think to Tom, that it probably is prudent. The other benefit of, and again, I'm not one for owning something that I have to maintain, because we have enough of that. So I'm reluctant always to take on something that has maintenance, which we all should be. The good news here is with the volatility of the markets, we're kind of hamstrung by renting, as you can see, those units from Willimantic Waste, which kind of binds us to Willimantic Waste. If you own your own compactors and the changes in the market occur, you may be in a better position to do something other than what we're doing.
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
How much single-stream waste is the town of go through on a monthly
And
basis?
annually, I'm winging it here, 500 tons, something like that, a year, something like that.
Oh, a year?
Yeah.
Okay.
The other benefit to this is we're presently hauling the Willimantic waste out in Willimantic. Murphy Road is in Hartford, which was where we take our MSW, so it's a shorter haul. In the long run, I think I think it would be a good decision to make.
But there's,
So-
there's.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Rick.
I was just gonna, there's no other private company that could
Take it.
take Willimantic Waste position, like do what Willimantic Waste has been
Well, I
doing.
could shop. I could, for example, matter of fact, when I called CRRA. Now, CRRA takes MSW and single stream from.
What's
many-
MSW?
Municipal solid waste, our garbage.
Okay.
So one of the compactors we run, without going there, is for garbage, the other one is for recyclables. When I contacted CRRA regarding taking our single stream, it's via a big contract which we signed, I don't know, it's good for 15 years, I think we signed it, what, 5 years ago, Susan?
Yep,
Something like that.
yes.
We signed a long-term contract that gave us a number of benefits, one of which is they will take our single stream for nothing. When I contacted them, they asked about the arrangement we had with Willimantic Waste, and I explained to them we were getting 25, and they said, wow, that's very good, but they want 30. And the guy said to me, well, that's about the going rate, even higher. So I could shop, for example, and I did a little bit of shopping. I don't believe you're gonna get anybody to take your single stream for nothing, and I believe you're probably gonna be paying at least $30 anywhere else.
So Rick, if we look at doing this, you talked about 500 tons a year.
Something like that.
So we'd be paying about $15,000 if we stayed in the current arrangement, plus we'd be still continuing to somehow rent
Correct.
these compactors.
Correct.
So if 57,000 gets us two.
It's about a 4-year payback.
Your payback's a little less than 4 years. I'm
That's what I-
assuming these are gonna last far longer than that.
They're long-lived.
Yeah.
They're long-lived. You know, it is, I should have said, it's about a 3.5 to 4 year payback. And you own them, and they're good probably for, I think the ones that are out there we're renting probably gotta be 20 years old at least.
And where are we? I know you said it's a 15-year contract.
We've got
Just how-
about, we got about,
About 5.
we got more than lap to go, Susan. We got.
No, I'm saying maybe 5 years in, Rick, maybe 10
Yeah,
left.
you got at least 10 years
Something, yeah,
more with
about-
CRRA.
Okay,
I believe
so
it's
the
2028.
payback
As a matter of fact, it is. It's 2028, so it's 10 years.
So the payback is there for.
I think unfortunately, it's a capital,
And just for the record, it's now, I think it's MIRA.
It is.
It
It
was
is MIRA.
CRRA.
It is MIRA.
That, if you want a long story, we could talk about that, because waste is quite a long story.
it is a very long
Yeah.
story. We're in a good place. I mean, we've made, you know, to the board's credit, I think the board has made good choices, and there were many choices to make with regard to what to do with all the different end products that we deal with. So I think we've done a fairly good job, but you need to increase your fees out there. because
Yeah,
we're-
that's
we're
built
supplementing
into the
that
budget.
by more than 50%.
And one thing I think we should do, Rick, is something you did a few years back, and it was good for the consumer and it was good for the fund. And that is if we decide to change the number, in other words, the cost of the bags for disposing of your garbage, we let people know ahead of time that it's gonna change maybe August 1, so that they can stock up and get it at the lower cost, so that they will have their bags, and that helps us because it gives us the revenue to run the program. And we did that about maybe 5 years ago
Probably
or
5 years
so.
ago.
We haven't raised the rate since then, but that would be one way to help people get their bags, but also gives us some more
Yeah,
revenue.
there's other things we charge for, which is bulky waste, and the other thing I think you should do, it's a bargain at $20 a year for a permit.
Yes.
I think you should look at that.
We got a
Phenomenal.
lot of compliments and awards for the Resource Recovery Center that Rick has established. It's really well-run, and you can bring just about anything there, and the cost is very nominal, particularly for electronics and paint, mattresses.
Yeah, East Hampton just came up a month ago and spent some time with us, and they're looking to go to a very similar system as to what we have for East Hampton. It's a bargain.
Yeah, it is.
But again, you're supplementing, I don't know what the number is, but it's general taxation supplement.
You know, what else is unusual is to be open
7 days,
5 days.
Yep.
Yeah,
We're open,
I was just talking with somebody about that.
It's a bargain.
we're open Tuesday through Saturday.
Yeah, and the person was surprised.
Yep.
Your town's open 5 days a week.
That's the cost of that.
The transfer in, Rick, is $171,375.
Total budget's what,
$339,975.
When that facility was established back about when I came, is the intent was to have that to be self-sufficient, which it never has done. Obviously, that was kind of wishful thinking, but each year if you look over the years, you'll find the general taxation is supplementing more and more and more and more of that. So it's something to look at in these times.
Well, I will say in fiscal year 16, the transfer in was 207,970. The transfer in estimated for 19 is less. It's 171,375.
That's good.
So, that's good. Depends on what's going on each year, I suppose. But in terms of the purchase of those containers, we'll come back to you on that with a proposal during
What I
the,
will tell you is, you will start paying 30 starting May 1st. So it
Okay.
is something that, and it is something that I would suggest that you're going to do, probably should do.
How long would it take to get the compactors when
I'm
the PO's
waiting
issued?
I'm waiting right now, I have the numbers with the exception of what the cost is for an extended warranty, and one of my questions to them is, how long before we could get them? I'm guessing not a month or two at the most, but, and you're not gonna lose a fortune over the course of a couple of months paying them, but it's something that, if
Yeah.
you're going to do it, do it.
Yeah, I mean, from our standpoint, I was assuming that that's what we were going to do. We've utilized the NJPA bidding process, got a vendor that we've done business with, and it worked out well.
that's an answer.
And anticipated to issue a purchase order on that quite soon. 'Cause that was the thought, is that, we can't spend money paying the guys, and plus, once the contract expires, there is no contract. There is no more agreement. We'd have to sign like a month-to-month agreement with the entity. So the likelihood is that purchase order, we have to review it, we have to get those additional components, but the intent is probably that we were going to issue a purchase order. It would be probably a utilization of the resource recovery fund balance, as they obviously didn't budget that much money. But that seems like a need.
What is their fund balance?
I don't have that with me right now, which I can actually get if I can borrow somebody's book right there.
All yours.
As of June 30, 2017, it was at 149,000. And stuff, like I said, that operation fluctuates so much. A person, in and out, and then, because the people get a charge there. If you have a family person, the insurance could go way up if there's an issue with a piece of equipment that breaks. So we do try to have some semblance of a decent fund balance in there. This will unfortunately utilize quite a lot of that fund balance, but this agreement is no longer, so there's not a lot of things we can do.
Susan?
Yes.
Hey,
Karen?
Tom, on 36002, that's general contract work, which one's that? The other question I asked the other day was contract services, 3100, but what's 36002? Contract, general contract work, I'm just curious.
What page is that?
Oh, that's page 67. 36002.
Can everyone hear us okay tonight? I had some folks tell us they couldn't, okay.
So general contract work this is a grounds maintenance budget, so these are items that the grounds supervisor reviews and controls. Sometimes there are things where you'll hire a contractor to do some improvements in a field. I know that if you realize that sometimes Chuck Sherwood's company, Sherwood Sports Turf, has done some work for us. There's a company, I think, Toro, I think, maybe come out and does some work with you, True Green or something like that. And, but the 17 with that bump was the $15,000 of work they did over at Middlesex Avenue with, cleaning up between the building and the street, all that work.
Oh, in the rear there?
Around the side of, between the people's houses and the ball field. So that was about.
Behind the post office.
So there's
About
really
14.
nothing dedicated to that? It's just more of a put the fire out when it comes money?
I think there's dedication. Again, I'm not the person who runs that budget, I believe. Carl does. I know he utilizes it within, well. Again, without running the detail of the account to tell you exactly, I just know those are the type of things that, they're always grounds associated activities, and, and he administers this account, so. I just know that was the big jump in 17.
I would want, if somebody could just check to see if there is a little wiggle room on that one or not, and maybe the answer is no.
Well, we can certainly get you info on
Which
that.
one, the contract?
Yeah, the 36002.
Yeah, I know, he's done things for us with
Right.
Park and Rec.
Last spring when you came, it's all you going back in, I'm sorry, I know where it was from. Ben, you want a tour, I'll take it.
Thank you. Okay. Page 128, just some additional changes in gas and fuel. Equipment repair and rental that we just talked about, the reduction there. And then the fees for municipal solid waste and recycling, slight change there.
Where? On page 129.
Page 129.
On one,
That's still on resource recovery, right? Yes.
and they may have already said it, and I apologize, on 128, how much of the equipment repair / is it rental money? And I'm assuming the rental money is just that compactor that we talked about, or those two? And do you know the breakdown between, it lumps them together for us as equipment?
I don't right off the top of my head, I can tell you that equipment repair and rental primarily is the factors. If something goes wrong with the Mac, we may fall under, the information at times, it may fall under, it may fall under sewer because we use the truck for hauling sludge, it may fall under resource recovery, but generally that's what happens.
Right, that's what I would have assumed.
That's about the only thing we rent. Repairs are minimal.
So if we do end up purchasing, that'll be good. If there was, say, 5,000 out of that number, could theoretically go towards a purchase if we ended the
Well,
lease.
yeah.
I reduced it by what the rental was.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it makes your payback closer to 3 years.
It was 10,000 in the March 1 budget.
Okay, so the rental was the difference?
Yeah.
Okay. That's a pretty good price.
Yeah.
Rick, how many permits do we have in town for the?
Well, I don't know off the top of my head, but about, last I knew, about 50% of the residents use the transfer station and about 50% use their private service.
Okay. So
Maybe a
3,000.
little more, maybe a little more than 50/50 use the transfer station versus the private hall. It's for anyone that, has, and it's a social event, of course, out there on a Saturday, but,
Sure is.
anyone that, the Saturday is a benefit to those who want to take advantage of it. They can save some money by using the transfer station versus the private hall.
So, question, if you're bringing your garbage, I guess, and, you're buying the bags and you're paying for the bags and throwing them in the bin, do you still need to have the permit sticker?
Any use of the facility for almost anything, with the exception, I have people that are calling on brush pickup because we're gonna be so far behind. I've said you can bring only brush in there without a permit. But typically, to use the facility, you need that $20 per year permit, which is, like I said, that's a bargain.
What do you feel the rate should go to?
I mean, I'm not a good judge of
I mean, you
that.
live in town, you probably use it too.
I do.
What's a reasonable number?
I don't
Just-
know, I mean, it's 20 now. I mean, the good thing is it encourages people to use the facility rather than we pick it up side of the road. And we do that. Up $10, 30? I don't know.
Well, I'm asking you because I use it too, and I have 2 stickers, one per
Yeah.
car.
Yeah.
And,
Well, we get the sticker, you can get 2 stickers for the price of one. In other
Okay.
words, if someone
Okay.
comes in and says, I have 2 vehicles, my wife runs, we keep track too. We write, we always track who gets them, how many they get. $30 wouldn't be unreasonable.
no, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
That's why I was asking you.
Okay. Yeah, that, we will review fees after the
Bulky
budget.
waste you should go up on, that's a very reasonable rate,
Yeah.
120 a ton for parked in a road, you know.
Okay.
We haven't done that in a while.
No,
It's
you
time.
should. MSW is really, generates your revenue. The bag prices, I think you went up on the bag prices, not that long, maybe a while ago. You could go up a little bit on
The
those.
budget is predicated on a slight increase.
Oh.
Yeah. And that's why I said, we'll name the date and encourage people to buy them at the lower cost. And then, as time goes on, the increase will occur. It's a good-
By the way, is there gonna be brush pickup this year? or
Yes.
not?
Yes, there is.
Yes.
There is?
Oh,
Yes.
yes. I'm not sure when we're gonna get it all, but there's gonna
Okay.
be.
We've gotten so many requests for
Well,
that.
good to hear, because people were asking me, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I heard no, so.
What is gonna come out in the paper in this River East News is,
It's on your, it's
We're doing
attached to
it.
their agenda, Rick. What I did was I
Okay.
copied what you gave
has
them.
to all be out by the 30th.
Right.
And there's a reason for that.
Right.
Like I say, right now, we're trying to fix people's lawns, we're trying to do this, they got brush on top of it, we got sweeping to do, so we're gonna be late this year. I'm saying, I guess we're not on camera, but we are gonna be late sweeping streets, we are gonna be late fixing roadsides, so it's all gotta be out by the 30th. We're gonna stop sweeping and we're gonna go around and pick up all the brush, and then go back to what we're doing, and hope that we somehow keep everybody
It'll be
semi-happy.
snowing.
But it
Well,
ain't
you got
gonna-
compliments today. Compliments were, thank you for doing such a marvelous job keeping our roads safe this winter. We've gotten a lot of compliments on the highway department doing really a great job in keeping us safe. And the next sentence was, when are you gonna pick up the sand? Because I want my road clean. So, the Public Works Department has begun roadside repairs. This was, it's on our website today, it's on your agendas, and has been removing downed trees and limbs from this winter's storms. We plan to begin street sweeping in the near future. Some of it has started. Somebody called today and said thank you. They had, seen the sweeper out in their neighborhood.
We haven't not begun to sweep streets.
Well, somebody said they
We're
came and,
hand-sweeping.
oh, they liked it.
Sweepers aren't going out for a couple of weeks.
Well, somebody came out and did a lot of work in their neighborhood, so,
We did, manually.
okay. The department typically conducts annual brush pickup only on odd-numbered years. However, due to the extent of tree damage from the winter's storms, the selectmen requested we perform townwide brush pickup this spring. If you have storm-related brush you'd like picked up, please have it at the edge of the road no later than, as Rick said, April 30, 2018. Feel free to notify Public Works Department, 860-342-6733, and let them know about roadside repairs that are needed or brush needing to be picked up. And as we know, there's a tremendous amount of cleanup and related storm work that it's likely that sweeping and other cleanup and repairs will be completed later than normal. There's a lot of work, but be patient, we'll get to you, and everything will be good. So that completes, I think, resource recovery. Any questions? The building maintenance fund, there's no changes there. Parks and Recreation has a slight decrease on page 133. From gas and diesel this year of $400, we're going down to $150 for next year. Let's see. And then we already went over, but we'll repeat the capital plan. We have in our budget $230,000 to replace the windows and frames at Brownstone Intermediate School windows. 20, now, LOSIP is Parks and Rec, right, Tom?
Where are we?
I
What
can't,
page?
I can't see Tom.
Yes, yes, it is.
I'm sorry?
What page are you on?
Yep.
I know, but I don't want to say that it's from taxation. That's LOSIP, right? We're on page 137.
Yeah, I believe that the L next to it, right?
No, I don't see the L.
No, there's,
Right? I don't see the L, right? On page 137?
yeah, it's missing.
Yep. So put an L next to the 25,000, because that's LOSIP.
What are you talking about? On page 139, there's an L right next to it.
I'm on 137.
137, there's no park, there's no LoSiP money there.
So
Okay,
what's the
wrong
25,000 for?
capital.
What 25,000?
You're on 135.
137?
So,
I'm
so-
sorry, maybe
so-
my
so
book is
one-
wrong.
Page 137, you just ignore the top part. So you go to the bottom part of 8190. It starts replace with windows, $230,000. When you go to the next page, it's 138. There's nothing budgeted. There's many, many requests. On 139, there's parks and fields improvements. That says a LoSiP designation. Underneath that is 99,500 for police. And then page 140 is municipal parking lots, which is a $49,324 number with the LoSiP designation. Page 140, same down, go down to highway division, replace dump trucks, 45,000. The page 141, the top number is 125,000 for sewer. And then the next is the townwide improvements of computers and peripherals for 21,000, revaluation for 10,000, and then the water of 125,000.
Okay, thanks, Tom. I was looking at the summary page. Thank you. And that concludes the changes. Is there anything you wanted to add, Tom or Rick or any of the directors? Board of Ed? Thank you.
Where,
Rick?
maybe I don't understand this, but like on the, these capital improvement plans, so the following year, total capital improvement plans, 10,231,000.
Well, that is all the requests.
Oh,
See, what happens, Rick, is over the 5 years, there's requests, and what we do our best to do is each year fund what we can and recognize that there are many more needs, and that's what this plan fully illustrates, that the needs are many, but each year we do our best to do what we think we can afford each year. In order to get funding for some grants, in order to qualify for various programs, you have to have a 5-year capital plan. So every year, our Long-Range Capital Expenditure Commission meets, they make recommendations, all the department heads make recommendations, Tom puts it together, the Long-Range Capital makes comments, and then recommendations for funding.
okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Yeah.
Ben?
Tom, thank you, wherever Tom is, thank you for giving, I think, Susan the breakdown of the signage. I do want to take, there's 10,000 in that, and there were a bunch of needed signs that got put up that I believe are going to be on a one-time basis, so I'm comfortable with lowering that to 7,500 for a yearly budget versus the 10,000, so taking away
2,500 out of that line item.
Could you tell us the page, please?
Sure. Page 59, line item 69001. It's under, I'm sure it's under Public Works, and it's the street signs. There's 10,000. Tom gave us a breakdown of all the signs we purchased. There were a lot of ones that Portland never had before, I believe, like the Job's Gates 1, 2, and 3, things like that. And they're expensive. Signs aren't cheap. But I'm hoping the 7,500 will suffice for next year's budget. Anybody want to comment on that before I go?
Yep, let's open that up.
I guess my question would be, what signs, I think most of them have been done, what's left to be replaced, and what's our normal run rate in terms of damage, accidents, and replacement, right? I mean, that's what I don't know.
I could only go by what Tom sent me, which signs we actually purchased. I went through line by line, and a lot of those seem to be one-time purchases, not repair. For example, like Job's Gate 1, Job's Gate 2, Job's Gate 3, there were a lot of signs like that. But they're very efficient with what they do. 7,500 is going to be tight, but I think it should be doable. I hope. Rick, I would obviously want Rick to comment. I'm cutting into his budget.
I was privy to what you said, unfortunately. I'm not a sign guy anyway, if you never had any of them or street lights, I'd be thrilled. But, yeah, I would say practically, you will make do, and if you don't, there's a lot of times I get requests to put up a sign here, put up a sign there, and those requests probably would be less, so let's try it.
Well, yeah, you bring up a great point, and I think the Board of Selectmen, it probably comes through us when there is a new sign recommendation, and there's going to be a lot of things we're going to be thinking twice about when the budgets are this tight, which leads me into my next one. Page 37, under, let's see, I have a bunch of different line items how I want to go about doing this. Under line item 37002, which the current budget would be for 35,000. I want to reduce that by 2,000, making it $32,000 instead of 35, and that is the labor and pension matters. That's 37002. So a reduction of 2,000 to that line item. And I guess I'll just say my 3, and then we can, if that's okay. And then let's see, the next one I would want to reduce is general town council, line item 37001. I'd like to reduce that from 25 to 22.5. And then line item 370019, I'd like to reduce that from 30,000 to 22,500. So a total reduction in that category from 97,000 to a grand total of 85,000. And once again, I think it's going to make us really figure out how we're going to get the best bang for the buck. For example, in the future, instead of maybe having a town attorney in a meeting, which is very expensive, we'll have a meeting, get a list of questions, and then have them sent over and get answers. Things like that. We're going to have to be more efficient in the future, and we need to look at every dime. I think this is one way to save a little money, maybe to offset the public works director's position that's coming up. I believe that was 11,000. So if you take all the grand total of everything I just talked about, it's a grand total of $15,000 between those items on public works and legal.
I'll open it up for comments.
So,
Okay, just
Rob?
a question.
Go ahead, Lou.
Yeah, Ben, you said, and I missed one of them, labor and pension, reduce that to?
2,000 off that, so from 35 to 32.
3.
Oh, sorry, 33.
To 33,
Yeah,
okay.
that's
There
what.
are, and I will point
My
out, I told
handwriting's
Ben this
atrocious.
earlier today, there are 3 contracts that are up this year.
Yes.
Okay.
The other thing I want to point out is, and I think one of the reasons that our legal fees have been high is, and I think Susan can attest to this, Ashley and Dan were new, and Lincoln
Somewhat.
took on more of a role, and we did turn to legal advice more often than not, especially you have to, on the air of caution, you need to.
Yeah, and we had decreased the salaries, as you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, so
tremendously.
I think in the future, they're
I hope so.
They're very competent
I hope so.
people in that department now. They really are starting to know the regulations better. They need less reference for legal. They know their book now, and there's a big difference. So that's going to help. So I think between that and being more efficient, really, like I mentioned, instead of paying an attorney to come to a meeting, if we don't really, really need it, we can make a list of questions that need to be answered, and we can get them in writing, and we can present them at the next meeting. And
Sure.
all of that saves money.
Finish the question.
Sure.
Back to where I was.
Okay, the 25,000, under general counsel, you want to reduce that by
2,500.
2,500.
So making it 22,500.
And then what was the third one?
The third one was 37, the one right below it, 37,019, reducing that from 30 to matching 22,500 to the line item above it.
And what is that?
That is planning and development matters, which hopefully there are no more big projects coming up like the last one. So hopefully, and I think we can be efficient, really. Everything in this, everything we spend, and I think Susan does an excellent job on how to be efficient. We really, really, really are going to have to buckle down in the next few years, and this is a place we're going to start, because we're not cutting it out of the police department, we're not cutting it out of the fire department. We really got to think about where we're going to start saving money, because it's going to get tough.
It is gonna get tough, I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I just would say, one lawsuit can undo all of your approval. So it's important to
Be
keep that in
careful.
mind, that, you can really undo savings by not having the proper people at the proper times protecting you from saying something or doing something.
That's not what that money's for. You bring up an excellent point. If you want to prevent the lawsuits, it's having great staff like Ashley, Dan, knowing their positions and knowing exactly what to do, and I think they do an excellent job, and now they do know that. That's how you prevent a lawsuit, and working through things. And I think that's going to put us in a better position in the future.
Well, I'll keep you informed too, as you had asked last time, Ben, so that you know when there's issues coming up. I'm happy to, when we do
Only
our
on the
monthly
big ones.
reports, I'll let you know if there's
Yeah.
issues, if there's been lawsuits filed, or there's questions asked, and keep you abreast of that, so.
And we did have a few big ones that hopefully.
We did.
Maybe I'm being optimistic. Hopefully, we don't. So.
I hope so.
And even if we do, we can still be a little more efficient with how we spend it. There are ways, like I said in the meeting, that those are huge, by not bringing council to a meeting if not necessary. And there are ways. And
We will strive. Lou, did you have more comments?
Well, one comment I was going to have, Ben, is that if we reduce the labor pension, and we have negotiations coming up this year, when you look over time, I mean, the 1 year was 28, then it was 41, 35, and if we reduce it to 33, that may be okay, that $2,000 there.
hang on one second, Lou, if we could just check, what are we year-to-date on the 35? I know that's what we budgeted, I'm just curious. We may have, we may be
We're
maxed.
pretty good this year, because we only had police contract this
But
year.
that may help you, with your thought process, Lou.
Yeah.
If we are way above that, you bring up an excellent point. And if-
You'll know, because if for some reason we go to mediation or arbitration, you'll know that. And you will have to allocate more money for that.
Right, and I know we still have.
And I hope we don't.
Right.
Yeah, and while she's looking for that, Ben, in planning and development, and maybe this is partly because of different people in the positions, but we were at 64 and then 66. This year, we reduced it to 30, and if I'm not mistaken, you're suggesting 22.5.
Yes.
Okay, the other two I'm probably okay with. That one seems to be pretty low.
Okay, and I respect that. My point is, I think we can be more efficient, and hopefully we don't have any major, we can all say it out loud. The Elmcrest thing was a big project for the town. They brought in a lot of legal counsel, and that drove up the price, and that's okay.
What was it before Elmcrest? Maybe Tom has, what was it?
You know what, I don't have the year-to-date with me tonight,
For which thing?
but I can tell you labor is not that high this
The
year.
labor and pension matters number on the last report we got was 7407.
7,400.
7400, yeah, 7407.
Whoever needs the compliment of great job, great job. I don't know who kept
Well,
that one.
and I will say that we're very careful. As Mary Ann pointed out, there are times when we need to have legal counsel. And we're as careful as we can be. It's just depends on the year. In fiscal year 15, The total spent was 89,256. And then you have fiscal year 16 and 17 in your books.
So, 85 hopefully is achievable, and that's the number I'm requesting.
What are we running on planning and development right now, Ralph?
24,802.
24,802. So we're already over that.
So, well,
But we
we're
have
trending in that direction
We're
to be
trending.
over.
And keep in mind, we're allowed to intermingle these for, you know that as well.
No,
as I- yeah.
understood. It's
Okay.
just trying to get them the best we can. I mean, that's the one, I mean, because we are less than half of where we were for actuals in 2016, 2017.
But for reference, the total for town council is at 48,740 right now.
48 for everything.
Yep.
This is the date report there, Ralph,
That's your 319 report.
Yeah, so that's gonna be.
That's only to February, right?
Maybe January-ish.
Oh, January-ish.
You get about 6 more months worth of, you're gonna blow that number. 97 will likely way above that.
You know, we are working, as you know, it's not just questions, but it's also review of plans. And EDC is working hard to bring more planning and development to the town. So while there are costs associated with that, we hope that we get results from it. So that's part of it. I'm not saying we're in a housing boom, but we are trying to look into development, and that's important for the grand list. Just to edification. Everybody knows that, I think. But I'll put that. I agree with most of them. I think you're probably a little low in the planning and development matters. I think you can strive for these numbers. I'll keep you apprised. It's just, I can't predict. But we're happy
Agreed.
to, and as you can see in labor and pension, it's been good this year. I hope it is next year, too.
Yeah, but you had one negotiation this year, right? And there's gonna
Yeah,
be
in the beginning of the
3.
year.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there'll be 3.
What did you have coming up? How
3.
many?
3.
So we spent 7,400 this year so far?
Yeah. It's not just negotiations, it's questions that can come up as well, in terms of any labor-related questions. What's your pleasure, folks?
So I have a question, probably it's related to the signage. So I know we want to reduce it, and I understand obviously the approach is to look at the trend and then go off of, well, we pretty much covered things, but we're going to be adding a park on 17, and I'm just trying to understand the signage that there will certainly be signage that has to be added, in all likelihood, on both sides of 17 around it. So where does the funding come for those signs?
It obviously would come out of the park. If it's a necessity for the park, it will come out of the park.
So it wouldn't be,
Chocolate signs.
We would have to. That's what the residents would need to know, where the money's coming from, in my opinion. If it's a necessity for the park, then it will be out of the park budget.
Okay. Just wanted to check.
But maybe I'm wrong. I'm only one guy up here.
And just to clarify that as well, for the airline trail, there'll be signage and walkways, pedestrian signs. That'll all come out of the grant. So maybe that could also come out of the Park and Rec grant, and all the other signs could come under the other amount of money that's there. And I think cutting that a little bit is a good idea.
you can see how that runs. We have less work to do. I'm just looking at it here and saying 15, 52. Probably the only one I'm not as comfortable with because of the way the run rates have been is the planning and development.
Can we just shift the numbers and maybe only take a little from that one and then take a little, to me, I
well,
looked at it as a
I'm
whole.
wondering, and this is the good thought, I think even if you, because again, those numbers are a little fungible, right, within this account. Even if you left that one and you took the other numbers, you're still getting, between those savings and the other savings with the signs, and I think the other one you did, that gets us, I believe, the 11,000 we were looking for the position.
No,
Because I
yeah.
know that was a primary goal, is trying to offset, right?
100.
We didn't want to have, with that increase, and I think we get there. I just don't want to leave this short, and right now, the run rate would put us at about $84,000, so.
But also keep in mind, and tonight, I don't believe is the time to have the conversation. I've never seen when we go out to bid, how much we pay per hour, what attorney does what. We have a whole slew of them. I'm not saying we need to do that, but let's face it, that's a big dollar item, and we need to look at this, and we need to keep an eye on it. And this is one of the few accounts we actually may have a little leeway. My point was, I do believe, with the times changing the way they are, my gut is, I think we're gonna be okay at the 85 in that account, in that whole line item. And we can mess around with what one stays high, what one stays low. At the end of the day, whatever one runs over wins. So I'm comfortable with the 85, but this board makes the decision, not me.
I'm okay with it.
What's that?
I'm okay with it.
I think realistically, we could put, I mean, if they're going over, it's gonna be a big number, so us cutting 2,500, if we feel good about it today, is fine, but the reality is, when you look at the trends in these numbers, it's fine, to me, it's fine, but I think if we're going over big, probably.
And we
so.
tell you every month what the cost is and what the issues are. Now, some of the issues we have to do in executive session if it's a lawsuit, and I've kept you apprised of all of that. And the board has sat in executive session, not everybody who's here tonight, but that's part of what you've asked for us to do. So if you don't want us to, in terms of defense of a lawsuit or a development matter, then we don't do it.
Not necessarily.
It's not, I don't want to, I don't
look
want
at
you to
it-
think that it's something that's one decision maker. It's this board that makes these decisions.
100%. And now I have a different hat on. For example, like when we were getting ready to buy the Keegan property, we did exactly what Susan said. And we had a lot of legal advice. We had a lot of back and forth. I think hindsight, I would have done a lot more paperwork versus any meetings and that was a tough one. Remember that, Susan?
Yeah.
We had some issues with the property needed to be filled in. It
Right.
was a big deal.
There were zoning
Council-
issues involved.
Yeah, council
You know,
was
it's-
on the
it's-
property multiple times.
It's up to this board, and, we will do as you direct. That's your job, you're the
Well,
policymakers.
One thing about where you might need some attorneys, that, is that riverfront land?
Yes, you have already, not only this board, but the previous board, asked that we have attorneys review that, and they assist us greatly. And as Mary Ann pointed out, because the title search was done, we know there's certain things, and I gave a report on that last time we met. We are waiting on that. And in fact, I wanted to point out that the bond will be only the 10 million in July. It will not be the 10,400,000. We're not putting that into the bond for the purchase of that land. So it's just the 10 million. Likely, that would come out of open space land acquisition, which I think is the better place for that. And we talked about that.
Yeah, and you mentioned, that
Yep.
I'm assuming it was, and I could be wrong, I thought we had about, was it 150 plus this new 50 going in, or no?
I think so, Ben, and I will
Okay.
double check that, but I believe yes.
So-
To answer your question, yes, there will be some dollars associated with
So, does that come out of this general town council budget?
that.
Or-
Typically it would, or it would come out of the purchase price. Planning and development.
Okay, so Ben, are you like taking that into account?
Yeah.
Because that could be kind of a hot issue, or.
You're gonna overspend if it becomes necessary. I'm just telling you.
And the other thing.
22.5 is really for day-to-day. If you do special projects, if you don't, and we don't budget for special projects then, so it's difficult to put that number on there. When you take on special projects, you have to get the right advice, as you point out.
Right. That's why, even though I said I agreed, I raised the question because.
Well, I propose taking 12,000 out. If you guys aren't comfortable, you pick your number. I just threw out there where I think it is achievable. I think we're gonna have to really be efficient in the future, and I'm not implying we weren't in the past, but I can assure you, you look at this budget, they're getting tougher and tougher, and next year is gonna be atrocious. So, I'm starting somewhere, guys, so,
Yeah,
you know.
well, I,
I'm sorry.
Who's talking?
I'm sorry, Sue. Which are the bargaining units that are coming out?
It would be Public Works, ASME, Secretary and Supervisors, and Library.
And are there any major changes proposed that you know of? So, for example, sometimes when there's a major shift in health insurance, you know that ahead of time, pay plans on. So is there anything major planned?
Well, we don't know at this point, Mary Ann. There could be, but we haven't
So
gone there yet.
that's something to really take into
Yeah.
account when you're doing negotiations. I'm on the negotiations team for Board of Ed.
Right.
And what we have very often thought is going to be a very straightforward negotiation has taken a turn because someone's passionate about an issue. So as you're thinking about how much money you're gonna spend on what I would consider to be more the day-to-day, non-special project, then you wanna consider that kind of stuff, in terms of, if you've got three bargaining
Right.
being negotiated.
Good point.
That's a lot different than dealing with one police, and you sort of have that in a box.
Maybe we should leave labor and pension where it is, Ben. You only took 2,000 out there.
Well, I use, if you look at, we spent 7,400 negotiating one. Let's assume it goes a little ugly, that's 10,000. You negotiate three, that's 30,000. I left us at 32. Maybe I'm being optimistic, maybe I'm not. I think those are,
No,
I think those are
you left it
legit.
at 33.
30, sorry.
Who's
My-
counting?
I got to fix my pen mark over here. It looks
I'm
like a
counting.
2.
I'm counting.
You're right, I only minus 2,000. So I'm comfortable with the 33, that gives you 11,000 per bargaining unit. In theory, we know we have 3 coming up. I think that's a solid number. I think it's achievable. I don't believe I'm selling us short. And I think we'll be fine. But, once again, I'm one.
I'm telling you, your track record is not there. But, you know, this year is a lot better than last year, certainly. But,
Well, who's comfortable with what number? Just remember, I threw out a proposal from 97 to 85, if that's not
Lou,
what
I'm
this
sorry,
board
did you have
wishes.
something?
Well, I just had a question,
Sure.
and maybe it's not even a question. If we have $97,000 in the total account, if we, in each one of those separate accounts, we go over and under, you know, during the course of the year, when we come out, it's $85,000 is all we have to spend, all we have to spend in town council. So it seems like a little bit of a lowball, because we are looking at 97 this year as, you know, allocated. And previous years, they were 137 and 167. So, you know, as much as I agree with the fact that it's, you know, we need to find some money to cut this budget, maybe that 85 could be 88. I mean, we're, there's not, you know, there's not a lot of money here, but I'm thinking, if we were to compromise on that cut, that's a good idea. But my concern is that in 2015 and 16, we were at 137,000. That's what we spent.
And this has been a good year.
Yeah.
And we're running a little lower with one contract. I'm looking at, you know, that's, I think part of what concerns me is that I'm looking at an 85,000 run rate just based on if 7 months have already been reported of the 12 in all these accounts. And then even if then you add $15,000 or $20,000 onto that, because of, we're negotiating 2 additional bargaining units, if everything else stayed static. You know, plus we know we have a couple of ongoing legal issues that are gonna become more active in the coming year.
The other thought, and keep in mind in the future, and Susan might be able to help out with this one, when we go to purchase a property like the Keegan property, and let's say there was 7,000 in legal fees, well, maybe that needs to get associated with the cost of the purchase, not out of our fund here. I'm okay with that, because then it's more, if anything, I'm not implying we weren't transparent, it's more transparent. It shows people,
Yep.
okay, this is what the legal fees for this project costs, we all wanted it, they voted for it, we did it. But that shouldn't necessarily come out of, bless you, that shouldn't necessarily be, so I think there's other ways to achieve things, but I personally, I like my number. Lou threw out a number, thank you.
Ben, you seem to kind of find, look through the budget, and you have a fair amount of experience here. How do you feel about some of the other budgeted items? Like I was on the fuel thing last week,
And I did that, I think, the first year I was on, and you're spot on, but what happens many a year is that there's just unforeseen, I do believe there's gonna be major savings. Tom, wherever he is, does an excellent job when to buy, but somehow we end up needing that money and spending it somewhere else. So, yes, I believe you're right. I think whether you give me the 12 over here or we go back and take 12 out of fuel, at the end of the day, I think Susan does an excellent job balancing the budget. She'll make it work. But, so to your point, yeah, I believe there's a little extra there, but and Tom will stand up and say, but you can't roll the dice on that. And you know what? He's right. He's done this a long time. He knows how to balance a budget. There really isn't a lot here. You look at even Rick's dump body. We don't do the dump body. That's $45,000. We're going to be paying for, one way or another. You're paying for it. This is a very lean budget. I think. Trust me, I want to cut. I want no mill increase personally, but I don't see it, and I'm looking for anything. And the reality is,
You're at slightly, as you say, Ben, you're at slightly more than 1%. You're just a little over 1% in increase in expenditures. So it is a very, you're almost at zero. I mean, the Board of Ed is at zero with
Yeah.
the changes in capital. You're a little, and other small items, you're at a little over 1%. That's all it is.
Well, I think that's, when we were looking at the, what the numbers would be, based on the, it's 1.42 mil of an increase just based on the reductions in state funding, and then 2/100ths based on the combined budgets and the combination of revenue and revenue, grand list, and expenditures, so for general government and Board of Ed. So it's very lean in that fact, but that's actually one of the things that concerns me, is that when you have a very lean budget, if you start overrunning certain accounts, it's harder to pull money from them. So we all have the same goal. We want to get this as low as we can. I just want to make sure we don't hamstring ourselves with stuff that's going on.
well,
causing the other.
as an owner of a small business, and so was Rick, this is one of the few variables, and you do have control. And I gave one example where if we can't afford to bring an attorney to a meeting, then we can't afford it. We can still get that legal advice. We can have that savings, and we can then use it for the lawsuit or whatever. Everything's not, there are other ways to achieve what we're trying to achieve, and I think that's one place we can start. Having said that, Rick, I think next year is going to be tough. I think there's going to be a lot of tough decisions, and I urge the public to come out, because it's going to be, if the state cuts us more, then it's going to be very, very tough for this entire board. I don't want to sugarcoat it. This year, we'll get through it. Next year is going to be very, very, very tough.
But we don't have an approved budget to cover the loss right now from the state, so we could be looking at 200,000 or something more in a blink of an eye, so yeah. It's
You're at
a challenge.
without any changes tonight, you're at 1.2% expenditure increase. So with some slight reductions, you'll probably hover around 1, which I think is reasonable.
Right. Well, let's ask, Susan is, she administers this account, and if she adamantly feels that I'm way off, I would respect her opinion. But I think this is one of her few variables that she can control, and let's all hope there isn't a major lawsuit or another major project that comes up. But major projects also bring big revenue, so.
Well, if there is, then you got to take it out of contingency.
Exactly. So
We'll hope that we can. I mean, you see the numbers.
Mhm.
And I know I'll probably be back to you, but if your effort is to try to reduce spending, I try to reduce spending as well. The budget is now in your hands. If you feel it's something you want to work toward, I'm happy to do, and I know our staff is happy to work with you. Tom, did you have any comments?
Yeah, I just wanted to listen to the conversation. Just a couple of things to share or add. So the way that we do a lot of our projects here, we try to come up with an idea or decide on a piece of land or decide on this project or this activity. And that initial onset cost is usually borne by the general fund, and because there is no authorization yet. We haven't got to the point where we're gonna make that decision to buy the land and get the voters' approval. There's nowhere to charge the money to. And you don't charge it, there are usually journal entry in after because you've already spent the money. So there are outlying costs that are associated with the activities. So similar to like the brownstone land purchase. At one point it was thought to be going through, now it may not. There's no authorization there to charge to, so those costs go back to the general fund. So I mean, I know there was at least a $5,000 one that's sitting on my desk for approval. There's another $5,000 one that's probably not in this report, just for expenses that are planning and zoning. I know there's a $20,000 bill for town for town council on my desk that needs to get allocated and paid for. This would be in March. So I just wanted to let you know that there are, when we do, if we are able to set aside in the capital plan, like more money in the land acquisition fund, then you can assign it and charge things there. But those initial projects, initial items, until you get to the point where you're making a full authorization, those do get charged to your general fund, and that's where you do see overages in this line item, because you're looking at a special project, or you're starting to work on a grant that you want the initial phases of the grant that aren't in the grant yet, but you have to get there to get to that point. So you'll do some work. Often you'll get special projects that are going on. All you need is one time of planning and zoning to sue the town. You're paying your town council to run the project. Then often a planning zoning will have an attorney, and you're paying double on the same thing just because they decide to sue each other. So I mean, those are things that just can make it can be a large expense right away. So I just wanted to, that's where you see those activities, and also some do generate, continued revenue and work. So I know the planning and zoning, I know there are our planning department does have some projects that are working through the pipeline. I don't know if they're going to be, coming through next year or not. But I just, that's where they can't go to the initial project because we don't have a project set up yet on certain things. When we get to the point where the project is set up and we have approvals, then the remaining costs of getting that done, getting the closing costs, doing the titles, or those type of things, when you get to the point where you're doing it, that's where they're born. But like in this instance, we may or may not be acquiring this property, so there's nowhere to put that other than in the general fund.
Tom, in the future, for example, and I'm back to the Keegan purchase, and I can't remember, but I think we paid $183,000, and I'll make up a number. Let's assume we had $10,000 in legal fee to get to that point. Couldn't we then always in the future make that part of it to replace the money out of the general account, for example? And it won't always happen, because there's going to be examples like you just mentioned that may not go through.
Generally, you don't move the money in after, because you spend it before you got authority. You're getting to the point, and now you go up and get all the work and get it done.
But in all fairness, when you go to the residents for the money, for example, using Brownstone, and we say that we're going to purchase it for $385, these are the costs.
Yeah.
Well, if the real costs are $400, for example, with the legal fees that we've already spent, that, in my opinion, should be put into that number and should then go to the residents, because it then needs to be repaid to that account because it didn't have authorization necessarily in the beginning. That's how I personally look at it.
But that's why you expend it, though. You spend it out of the general fund because you don't have an authorization there. So you're spending it where you do have an authorization in the general fund.
I get that. But could we replace the money so people have it? So the
You can't-
reason I want
say across years is on you. You can't. The expense is gone.
the reason I want this to somehow work, and I don't know how you're a great guy with numbers, and I think you can figure this out. If we can figure out, I want the real numbers associated with everything that we're doing out there. For example, what I just mentioned. If there is 10,000 legal fees on the Keegan in the paper, instead of 183, make it 193 total cost, blah, blah, blah. And whether you have to, it can still be replaced into the following year general fund. I don't believe it has to go back into the original one. There's gotta be ways to do it, because this is our board, and if there isn't ways to do it, I vote we figure out a way to do it.
Well, the way you figure out how to do it is in your capital plan, you set aside land acquisition money like it's proposed year after year. And it's sitting there in the resolution, in the capital plan.
We
So
have.
therefore, you have like $5,000 maybe sitting
50.
there. So I mean, left over from a last acquisition, there's no money sitting.
Just clarification, that what Ben is referring to is the open space land acquisition
Right.
fund. That's not in the capital fund.
That's an open space, yeah.
It's in a separate fund. But it's the same general idea, but it, for example, if you, say you needed to purchase, we're not doing this, but if you needed to add on to land next to a school, for example, that would not necessarily be open space. That would be, you needed it for a septic field or something, you know, that, something a town would do. And what many towns do is they set aside money within their capital fund for just these kinds of things. In fact, and again, I'm not proposing this, but our sister town in Glastonbury, they have authorization, bonded authorization, to then go and buy land. So they don't wait around to buy land and get authorization, et cetera. Communities that are more either town manager, council forms of government, they don't do all of the approvals that town meeting government has to go through. So you can't just go and purchase land. You have to go through a public hearing, and then you either go to a town meeting and then a referendum if it's over $1 million, $500,000. If it's under $500,000, then you can go to public hearing and then town meeting. So there's a lot of different requirements for approvals that we have. So it gets more difficult to conduct projects. I understand what Ben is saying. I'm not disagreeing. I think it's good to know what you're spending on various projects. But because you don't know in the beginning if you're even going to do it, but the board has said, this is in our plan of conservation and development, this is part of our plan, this is what we want to proceed with, we do the investigation, you, the board, may decide to proceed, or you may decide not to. But to get there, we don't have in-house counsel. We don't have, Middletown has an attorney full-time. I don't know about the other towns in the area. Most of them contract. But we get a discounted rate from what they might charge a private company, but it's still expensive. It is.
I guess-
But it prevents trouble, and it also gives you information that you need to make your decisions, of which you have many steps to go through. And I think that's what sometimes gets very concerning to the public, because they think, oh, all of a sudden something is coming up. But it isn't. It's the board that's been looking at it based on what the plan of conservation and development tells you you should be doing. So you go through the process, then you bring it to a public hearing, you get feedback, you may have to go to another public hearing because you change things, and then you go to either a town meeting or a town meeting and then a referendum. When we did the $10 million authorization, we did lots of meetings, then we did public hearing, then you had to do a town meeting, then you did the referendum. So the decision-making on that particular project is based on what people wanted. They voted for it, which is a good thing. But this how you get there is not always project-specific, as Tom said, because you may decide not to go forward with certain projects. Right? But to get there.
This will be the last thing I say on it. Back to my point. We have an open space fund of $150,000 a year, or sorry, $50,000 a year. We have about 150 in there now, and I think it's going to go up to 200. If in the future we're looking to buy property, and that's what that fund's for, so we will be looking to buy property. I think we should allocate the money for legal fees for the purchase of that property from that account. I don't think that's outrageous. I think it's fair, and I think it's doable. So if there is going to be a $5,000 legal fees for buying another piece of property in Portland, whatever one it is, I have no issue with, that's where it should get allocated to help this fund where the matters aren't as variable, like a pension matter. It's all on where we, it's all one big budget. But I do believe that we could put legal expenses part of the open space because it's part of purchasing it, And I think it's legal, and I think it's doable, and that's the point I was trying to make. That's it.
And if this board is so willing, we'll go into more detail on these things at our first meeting every month. So you can see what has happened over the last month and what we project. We're happy to do that. It's up to this board as to how they want to proceed.
But if we're reviewing at the financial meeting, we're reviewing those numbers, isn't that a better time to maybe visit that?
Yeah,
Something.
absolutely, yeah. But right now, you have to decide what you're gonna charge the voters for their budget next year. If you were to go proceed, you'll have saved $14,500 so far. 2,500 out of signs and 12,000 out of council. In addition to what you already saved, which is about 420,000 or so.
Yeah.
How
How
much
much
did
was it?
the,
441.
Wait a minute, one at a time.
Sorry.
Go ahead, you're first.
No, I think it was like 440 in that ballpark.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
somewhere.
we've reduced the budget about 440,000 from March 1. And I'm not gonna look. Okay, and then you would add 14,500. Rick?
I was gonna ask, out of that original budget, how much did we take off for the fuel charges? What was the net it ended up?
It was-
Gave out the spreadsheets last time. I think I have them with me.
And I think, Ben, where you're going is, you kind of just, basically, you want to get back the difference of what we had to add for the hiring of the
at-
public works.
At minimum, correct. I didn't look at it necessarily just based on that,
Okay.
but obviously, we do have a small dilemma, $11,000, a little difference than what we originally talked about, and, you know, if you take my 14.5, it gets us there, and maybe a little extra, and maybe you guys don't like the little extra, but I personally just looked at it as, where can we potentially have savings, period.
Okay, what I see on the chart, Rick, reduction in the fire department gas, and I'll ask Tom to correct me if I'm wrong, $1,750. Reduction in the animal control gas, $275. Parks and Recreation gas, $250. Transfer station gas, $750. And those were on this chart. Is there anything in addition, Tom?
Is that 3,025 or something?
25.
350,
No, 3,025, right?
Is that much?
325, 3,025. right?
Okay, so it was around $3,000.
Yes.
I got it from the chart we handed out last time.
Was the police one changed at all?
I don't think we did. I think we
No, I
didn't,
don't
because
think
they had more vehicles going, didn't we have a discussion on
Yeah,
that? More
we did.
officers driving them?
Yep,
I think that was the reason.
yes, Ben, you're right. And we checked prices today, they went up again. So we did not
On-
add
on
to
fuel?
it. Yeah.
That's because of the Middle East, the uncertainty.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, trouble in the Middle East.
If we send missiles over to the Syria,
Yeah,
we'll be
that's-
talking much more.
Smartness.
You're
And
right.
that's why we're kind of, I think we're all set there, but that's
Yeah,
up to
we-
here.
We
I
won't, we
think
won't
we're.
push that anymore.
But I did do
We'll
that
back
year
off
one.
on that.
Okay, whatever you want. These are my notes here. Okay, so this would be an additional 14,500. Are there any other suggestions? Because you have in front of you a resolution. Nice, you know what, I'm gonna grab another one, I think I have
Okay.
another one under here. Yep,
Is Rick gone?
does everyone have one?
Is Rick gone? Looks like it. I was just gonna ask.
I don't see him.
Well,
I think
okay.
he had to leave, yeah.
I was
Did
just
you have a
curious.
question, Ben?
I was just curious whether that dump body replacement was a piston and everything, the subframe, just the tub, a lot of variables I didn't,
Do you remember?
I did, I should have asked that.
I know that Lou had asked some questions at one of our workshops on that. Do you remember it? I don't remember that level of detail.
I'm just curious whether, like on a dump body, obviously we have an existing setup. I wasn't sure if we were reusing the piston, reusing the subframe, and just buying a new tub, you know, the top part. Or is
I
it?
asked a little question about that, and basically he said, the body is rotted, it's used, it's beyond its useful purpose, whether it's, I think it's the whole thing, because it sounded like for $95,000, I think.
45.
$45,000.
I'm not giving 90.
Could be just the body, you know, I don't know, could be just that body.
Okay.
Could
Yeah,
I
I don't
ask
think we discussed that detail.
for a motion for a brief recess so that I can do the
Motion for,
calculation?
motion for,
Is there a second?
second.
Second by Ben, all in favor?
Aye.
Let's say just 10 minutes, because I just want to check the
Yep.
numbers, okay? Yep, everybody can do their own math. You spent a lot of hours on this, and you went through every page, I think maybe almost 3 times. So I appreciate your diligence, and I think you did a fine job, and I appreciate it very much. Thank you. Are you ready for the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Now I think we need a motion to adjourn.
Susan,
Yes, is there another item?
no, we can't change the agenda, but when's Rick's last day?
Oh,
When's
May
his last
31.
meeting here?
Last meeting here, I'm not sure.
Okay, I think we should do some sort of plaque or something for service, but whatever you guys.
Absolutely. I will keep you informed to that. Thank you for that suggestion.
Thank you, and thank you for doing a good job with the budget.
Oh, I appreciate that. And thank you, Tom Robinson, and thank you, Superintendent O'Reilly, and all the Board of Education. I know you spent hours and hours and hours as well, and all of our directors who are here with us and who can't be here tonight. It's a good job. I think united, we will do well toward moving the town forward. I want to thank our reporters, too, for putting our information out there.
And hope,
Thank you from the board for keeping that.
Wow.
Well,
I
you-
think it's remarkable how well we work together. When you see some of our neighboring and further out towns having such difficulty, we need to work together, and I think Portland stands strong, so Portland's strong.
Our little quiet corner of the world is so amazing.
and hopefully your window bids come in favorable, and you guys have, and I did mean it, you can keep the change. You know, what it is. You have plenty of other expenditures.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
Seconded by Ralph. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everybody.